So you've heard of Johnston Canyon, maybe even added it to your must-see list. But what you might not realize is that this iconic Banff hike is part of something much bigger, something that can add a whole new dimension to your trip. I'm talking about the Bow Valley Parkway, a scenic, wildlife-rich alternative to the Trans-Canada Highway that offers some incredible views and quieter moments in Banff National Park. Welcome to the Banff Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Celine Brewer, a local Canmore resident living the mountain life all year long. When I'm not hiking to a new viewpoint, hitting the local mountain bike trails, or skating on frozen lakes in the winter, I'm helping travelers like you plan unforgettable trips to Banff National Park. As co-founder of Banff Travel Planning and Travel Banff Canada, and a fellow traveler who spent years exploring the world with my husband and our 2 kids, I know what it takes to plan a trip that's smooth, stress-free, and full of those wow moments. In today's episode, we're diving into everything you need to know about both Johnston Canyon and the Bow Valley Parkway, from closures and seasonal access to cycling, hiking, and where to stay. So what is the Bow Valley Parkway? Let's start with the basics. The Bow Valley Parkway is a 48-kilometer scenic highway, also known as Highway 1A, that connects Banff to Lake Louise. It runs parallel to the Trans-Canada Highway, but is slower paced, lined with dense forest, and much more likely to offer wildlife sightings, especially at dawn or dusk. It was once the main highway that ran between Banff and Lake Louise. It's home to a handful of lodges and cabins, campgrounds, peaceful picnic areas, scenic viewpoints, and several hiking trails, including one of the most popular hikes in the entire park, Johnston Canyon. So what is Johnston Canyon? If you haven't heard of Johnston Canyon yet, get ready. It's a dramatic canyon carved by water over thousands of years. Catwalks cling to the canyon walls, leading you past waterfalls, turquoise pools, and mossy rock faces. There are 2 main destinations, the lower falls, which includes a cave you can climb into to get closer to the falls, and the upper falls, plus a third option, the Ink Pots, a series of vibrant, mineral-rich pools in a wide alpine meadow. The lower falls are just 1.2 kilometers one way, and the upper falls are 2.5 kilometers one way, with the trail continuing further to the Ink Pots, making the distance 5.8 kilometers one way, if you're up for a longer adventure. If you're just going to the upper falls and back, this hike is family-friendly, short, scenic, and extremely popular. So how popular is it? Recently, I ran a poll in my Facebook group with over 70,000 Banff-bound travelers, and I asked, what's the most overrated place in Banff? And guess what? Johnston Canyon came out on top. Now, that might surprise you, but let me explain. It's not that it's not worth seeing. It's incredibly beautiful, but it's also extremely busy, especially between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Long lines, crowds on the narrow catwalks, people waiting to get that one waterfall selfie. So it can be overwhelming if you're not prepared. Now, my family loves Johnston Canyon, so I do really hate to hear that people think it's overrated. And I did question the people who said it wasn't worth it. Almost every single one of them said that it was because it was too busy. So let's talk about how to do it right. What are the best times to visit Johnston Canyon? Early in the morning. If you're coming peak summer season, I would go before 8 a.m., before the tour buses arrive. You'll avoid some of the bigger crowds and maybe even spot some wildlife along the parkway. Alternatively, you can go in the evening. It's another great time, especially in the summer when our days are long. You could even go when everybody else is back in town having dinner. If you're coming in the winter, Johnston Canyon transforms into a magical frozen wonderland. You have ice climbers scaling the upper falls and definitely fewer crowds. I would most definitely skip midday, especially in peak summer. Again, everyone that said it was overrated said that it was pretty, but the crowds made it awful. Now, if you haven't heard, there are some closures on the Bow Valley Parkway, and one of the questions I always get asked is how can I get to Johnston Canyon if the Bow Valley Parkway is closed? Before I get into the details, just know that there's nothing to be concerned about. You can still drive to Johnston Canyon even while these closures are in place. So let's talk about these closures on the Bow Valley Parkway, as this is where things get confusing for visitors. The first thing you need to know is that there are 3 entry points to the Bow Valley Parkway. One is just 6 kilometers past the town of Banff. The second one is another 20 to 25 kilometers down the highway called Castle Junction, and the third one is at Lake Louise. Only the section from Johnston Canyon to the first exit on the Bow Valley Parkway is closed to vehicles. This is just 17 kilometers of this 48-kilometer road, and it's only this section that is part of the closures. Now, one closure is for vehicles only, allowing for an incredible cycling opportunity on this road. And the second one is for all traffic, foot, bike, vehicles, everyone. So the first one we're going to call the cycling closure. The cycling closure is from May 1st to June 25th, and then again August 28th to October 2nd. The eastern section of the parkway, so from Banff to Johnston Canyon, is closed to vehicles during these times. It's roughly 17 kilometers one way. I'll discuss cycling on the Bow Valley Parkway a little bit later. Now, the second closure we'll call the wildlife closure. The wildlife closure is from March 1st to June 25th. This happens every year. It's from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., so this is overnight. During this time, overnight travel is prohibited, and this is to give the wildlife space in the spring. It means that all traffic, including bikes and walking, cannot be on this section of the Bow Valley Parkway before 8 a.m. or after 8 p.m. This is that same 17 kilometers from Banff to Johnston Canyon. So if you're visiting in May, June, or September, you need to drive to the second exit to access Johnston Canyon. You can input Castle Junction on Google Maps and it'll show up, but even if you enter Johnston Canyon, Google Maps will give you the correct route. For those of you who want to cycle, remember, May, June, it needs to be after 8 a.m. In late August and September, that wildlife restriction is not in place anymore. So let's talk a little bit more about cycling the Bow Valley Parkway. Cycling this road during the spring or fall, when it's closed to vehicles, is, in my opinion, one of the best experiences in the park. No traffic noises, just you, the trees, the mountains, maybe a bear or elk grazing in the forest. Now, you can rent bikes in Banff. You can ride all the way to Johnston Canyon and back. Just know if you continue past Johnston Canyon, you're going to be sharing the road with vehicles. If you're traveling with kids or less confident riders, this is a great alternative to the busy Legacy Trail. If you aren't sure if your legs are up for this ride, e-bike rentals are available throughout the town of Banff. And there are also tours if you're not comfortable doing this on your own. And some of those tours will have you just ride it one way to Johnston Canyon and you don't have to do the ride back. So there are plenty of options that work for everyone. Now, you can start the cycling experience right from the town of Banff, as I mentioned. You'll start out on the Vermilion Lakes Road, which at the end will turn into the final section of the Legacy Trail that then leads right to the Bow Valley Parkway. It's quite easy to follow. I'll put a map in the show notes for you. Now, there and back would be a very long ride for kids, so I do recommend only going as far as they are up for. We took our kids on this ride last year, I believe, or the year before, and we didn't make it all the way to Johnston Canyon. Knowing that we had to come back, the kids were done with the bike ride and you still have some hills to climb on the way back. So just keep an eye on your kids and make a judgment on when to come back. And don't forget, you can make plenty of stops along the way at picnic areas, have some snacks, and of course, make sure you have your bear spray. Stick together as a group and don't let your kids zip up ahead. You never know when there might be a bear along the trail. So whether you're driving or cycling the Bow Valley Parkway, it's the perfect time to slow down and enjoy the scenery. There are several places to stop along the Bow Valley Parkway. You have the Sawback Burn. You can witness the rejuvenation of a forest after a prescribed burn. Muleshoe is a great picnic spot. You have the Hillsdale Meadow viewpoint, which has some picturesque views and gets to be full of wildflowers in the summer. Of course, there's the popular Johnston Canyon. You can stop at the Castle Cliffs viewpoint for stunning views of Castle Mountain. Storm Mountain Lookout is another great stop. And then, of course, Morant's Curve, one of the most famous photography spots. It's known for that view of the S-shaped curve in the train tracks alongside the turquoise-colored glacier-fed Bow River and the dramatic Lake Louise area Rocky Mountain peaks as a backdrop. Now, keep in mind, some of these spots that are in the 17 kilometers between Banff and Johnston Canyon can only be seen on bike in May, June, and September during the closures. Examples of this would be the Muleshoe picnic area, the Sawback Burn, or Hillsdale Meadows. Outside of these months, you can drive the entire length and see all the stops. For some, staying along the Bow Valley Parkway has some advantages. You get to be away from the busy towns, and you get early access to places like Johnston Canyon. We've stayed at the Johnston Canyon cabins and bungalows a couple of times. One time before kids and then one time with our kids. And our kids just loved this stay there in this cabin and then having that easy access to Johnston Canyon first thing in the morning and even later in the evening. It was such a treat. And then plus you're on the Bow Valley Parkway, so going for a evening scenic drive is a great thing. The only thing you need to know is that the food options are limited, so you may find yourself driving back to Banff or Lake Louise for meals. Also, along the Bow Valley Parkway, as I mentioned previously, you'll find some campgrounds, Johnston Canyon Campground and the Protection Mountain Campground. And while I highly recommend the Johnston Canyon Lodge and bungalows, there are some other really great options for staying along the Bow Valley Parkway, like the High Castle Mountain Wilderness Hostel, Castle Mountain Chalets, and Baker Creek, which is the closest to Lake Louise. Now, if you're not driving during your visit to Banff, there are still options for you to visit Johnston Canyon and enjoy some of the scenic Bow Valley Parkway. You can take Rome Route 9 from the town of Banff, and some tour companies will do guided hikes at Johnston Canyon, and even the Banff Hop-On bus will stop at Johnston Canyon. So you can check the show notes for all of these links. Now here are my final tips for enjoying the Bow Valley Parkway and Johnston Canyon. Plan ahead, check for those road closures and any restrictions before visiting. Obey the rules of the road even when you're cycling. You may find some Parks Canada vehicles along the road, and you really should be abiding by the rules and directions of travel. Obviously, you want to obey the speed limit, and not only to keep yourself out of trouble, but because you want to enjoy the scenic views. And also, this road is known for its wildlife, and we want to keep our wildlife safe here. As I mentioned, you want to arrive early. This is highly recommended for popular areas like Johnston Canyon to get parking and avoid those biggest crowds. You want to be prepared for that wildlife, carrying bear spray, knowing how to use it, making noise on the trails, and obviously maintaining a safe distance from the animals. Don't forget to dress in layers. The temperatures can really vary, especially as you enter into the canyon or on those mornings on the bike. I highly recommend having some gloves for riding your bike. It can get quite chilly on the hands, especially in June. Bring lots of water and snacks so you can have a full day of adventures. Leave no trace, pack out all your garbage. If you're going by bus, make sure you check the Rome bus schedules. And then bike rentals, they're available in Banff for anybody that wants to cycle this road. I'm going to link to my posts in the show notes that give even more specifics and details for Johnston Canyon, cycling the Bow Valley Parkway, and just the Bow Valley Parkway and all its stops in general. Now, instead of a listener question this week, I want to take a minute to talk about something incredibly important: wildlife safety and respectful behavior in Banff National Park. Banff is full of incredible wildlife, from tiny chipmunks to massive elk and even grizzly bears. But here's the thing, these animals are wild and we want to keep them wild. Feeding them or getting too close isn't just dangerous, it's harmful to the animals. A term that we say a lot around here is that a fed bear is a dead bear. Now, as locals, we see and hear all sorts of horror stories about visitors putting themselves and animals in danger with their behavior. I've had to ask people not to feed chipmunks. I've told a woman to back away from elk when she was trying to get her picture taken. And even recently, I had to tell a couple to get back in their car when trying to approach a bear. And unfortunately, I've seen too many visitors respond with hostility or defensiveness when locals or park staff try to offer polite warnings. Please, if somebody stops to correct your behavior, take it as kindness and not a criticism. Us locals not only want to ensure our visitors have the best time, but we also want to protect the animals. The best response is a simple thank you, followed by moving on. Banff's wildlife truly is a part of what makes this place so amazing, and we all need to do our part to keep it that way. We want to keep them wild, safe, and thriving. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Banff Travel Podcast. If you got value from this episode, do me a favor. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss the next one. It's free, it helps the show, and it keeps you in the loop. I also appreciate if you can leave a review. If you'd like to support the podcast, I now have a page where you can say thanks, send a tip, or grab one of my downloadable guides. You'll find it at travelbanffcanada.com/support. And I appreciate every single bit of support. It helps me keep this going so I can help travelers like you have the best trip to the Canadian Rockies without the stress and overwhelm. And if you have a question you'd like me to answer in a future episode, head to banfftravelplanning.com/podcast and send it in. Until next time, happy trip planning, and I'll see you out on the trails.